3:12 a.m. That's when my phone lit up like a warning flare beside the bed. I wasn't asleep, hadn't been in hours. Not because I suspected anything, just insomnia. Or maybe, deep down, I knew something was coming. The message glowed against the darkness, cheerful and devastating. Just married, Miles, we did it. Also, you're honestly pathetic. Sorry. No. Hi. No explanation. Just that. It took me 7 whole minutes to process what I was reading. I timed it. I literally stared at the screen, unmoving, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less horrifying. Miles. Her coworker. The guy she once called a bit much at holiday parties. The guy who wore loafers with no socks and talked about fasting for clarity. She married him. In Vegas. And I got a text like I was a customer being notified his gym membership had expired. I didn't reply with a novel. I didn't plead or scream. I just typed one word. Cool. It felt robotic. Detached. My fingers moved, but my brain hadn't caught up. Then something very uncharacteristic happened. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of warm Dr. Pepper from the bottle she never bothered to close properly. I stood there in silence. Then I grabbed my laptop. By 3:24 a.m., I had logged into our joint bank account and moved every cent to my personal checking, reported both her cards as compromised, disconnected her Apple devices from the home system, scheduled an emergency lock change through a 24/7 service I never thought I'd need. By 4:10, a man named Earl was drilling out the front door deadbolt while I stood behind him in pajama pants, holding a flashlight and trying not to vomit. And the whole time, I swear, I was shaking not from sadness, but from this surreal sense of clarity. I didn't know what stage of grief I was in, but it definitely wasn't denial. It was technical support mode. Like I was fixing my own meltdown by deleting her access one password at a time. By morning, the locks were new. Her cards were frozen. My stomach was in knots. And just when I thought I had at least secured the situation, emotionally, physically, financially, the doorbell rang. It was 9:17 a.m. I peeked through the peephole and nearly dropped the coffee I hadn't even sipped. 2 police officers were standing on my porch. One had a notepad. The other was already scanning the windows. I opened the door with shaking hands. You Carlton Merrick? Why, yeah. We're here regarding a welfare concern. Your wife reported being locked out of her legal residence. She claims you've cut off her access and left her stranded. Stranded. The word echoed in my skull like a bad joke. She got married to someone else in another state. She texted me at 3 a.m. to let me know I'm pathetic, and now I'm being questioned on my own doorstep like some kind of villain? I tried explaining. I showed them the message. The timestamp. The Instagram story where she posted a boomerang of herself and Miles kissing under a neon Elvis sign that said, Happily Ever Vegas. They said they'd document the situation and advised me to speak with a family attorney. And then they left me there, barefoot, on the welcome mat she insisted we buy. The one that says, Love lives here. No, it doesn't. Not anymore. The officers left with their polite nods and hollow assurances, and the door clicked shut behind me like the final punctuation mark on a sentence I didn't write. For a full minute, I just stood there in the hallway, staring at the wall where our wedding photo used to hang, a square of slightly lighter paint surrounded by years of dust and false memories. I hadn't even realized I'd taken it down 2 days ago. Maybe some part of me had already started grieving before my brain caught up. I sat on the floor right there in the entryway, next to the umbrella stand she insisted we keep even though we never used umbrellas. My back against the wall. My eyes on the doormat that still said, Love lives here, now muddied with scuff marks from the police boots. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I felt displaced. Like someone had hit the eject button on my reality and now I was floating above it, watching this sitcom where the main character had no idea he'd been written out of the plot. I started rereading the message. Not just once, 5 times. 10. Picking it apart, looking for anything that resembled a human emotion. Just married Miles clinking glasses ring we did it. Also, you're honestly pathetic. Sorry. The emoji placement made it feel more like a vacation update than a confession. No guilt. No explanation. Just celebration and condescension. And that final word, sorry. It didn't belong there. Not like that. It was the kind of sorry you say when you bump someone's grocery cart, not when you detonate someone's life. By noon, I received my first call from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. Then came the second, third, fifth, all in a row. I finally picked up on the 6th, if only to stop the buzzing. It was her. No greeting. No preamble. Did you seriously cancel all my cards? Her voice was clipped, accusatory, like I had broken some unspoken rule of decency. I answered calmly. Did you seriously marry another man? Silence. Just breathing on the other end. Then a scoff. God, you're so petty. I could have screamed. I could have said everything I'd been rehearsing in my head for the last 10 hours. But instead, I said, you sent police to my house, Tessa. They're supposed to protect my rights, she snapped. This is still my legal residence. You locking me out is a crime, and you know it. But marrying someone else while you're still legally married to me isn't? She didn't answer that. Just hung up. No goodbye. 5 minutes later, I got an email. Not from her new husband. The subject line read, "We can handle this like adults." I opened it. Miles had written an entire paragraph, the tone of which reminded me of one of those passive-aggressive HR memos. He called the situation unfortunate, suggested I step back emotionally, and said Tessa would be returning temporarily to collect her essentials. He used the phrase amicable resolution twice, and even included a link to a shared Google Doc labeled Asset Division Framework Draft. I stared at it for 10 solid minutes. She had married a man who makes Google Docs for betrayal. I closed my laptop, walked into the kitchen, opened the freezer and grabbed the emergency pint of caramel fudge ice cream, the one I kept hidden behind the frozen piece. I sat on the counter, eating directly from the carton with a soup spoon, trying to come up with a single moment, just one, where I could have seen this coming. Nothing. No affair rumors. No fights. No ominous silences. Just a week ago, we were watching reruns of home renovation shows and arguing about whether the host's accent was real. Then she flew to a conference. And now here I was, staring down the barrel of divorce, public humiliation, and possibly a lawsuit from the woman who swore she loved me last Thursday. The doorbell rang again. This time, I didn't move. I stayed in the kitchen, listening as someone knocked, softer than before. Then the ringing stopped. I checked the camera feed from my phone. It wasn't the police. It wasn't her. It was her mother, standing there, with a suitcase. No explanation. No warning. Just standing there like I was the one who needed to host her now. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't open the door right away. I just watched her from the kitchen, Tessa's mother, Bonnie, standing on my porch in her raincoat, clutching a heavy blue suitcase and glancing nervously at her phone. It wasn't raining. She had always worn raincoats when she wanted to feel in control. This was no coincidence. I finally got up and opened the door slowly, bracing for a rehearsed monologue or a slap to the face. Instead, I got something worse, a sigh and a look of pity. "Hi, Carlton," she said softly. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without saying a word. She dragged the suitcase across the threshold like she had every right to be there. Like none of this, the Vegas wedding, the betrayal, the cops at my door, had ever happened. She settled onto the edge of the couch, knees together, hands in her lap. I leaned against the wall like a guest in my own home. The silence between us stretched like a fault line. "I didn't know," she finally said. "About the wedding. About any of it." I stared at her. She told me it was a spa weekend with friends. Then I wake up this morning to a group photo from some Elvis chapel, and my daughter's beaming next to a man in sunglasses holding a marriage license like it's a lottery ticket. She rubbed her eyes. "And then I see your name trending in some private Facebook group. They're already gossiping about you." Me. I snapped. She marries another man while still legally married to me and I'm the gossip headline? Because you changed the locks, Carlton. My laugh was bitter and low. You know what's funny? That's the least dramatic thing I did this week. Bonnie shook her head, suddenly teary-eyed. I don't know who she is anymore. But I couldn't go back to my place. The neighbors are asking questions, and honestly, I don't want to be around her right now. She looked up at me. I know I'm asking a lot, but could I stay here a day or two? It was the most surreal question I'd ever been asked. The mother of the woman who'd torched my life asking for refuge inside the ruins. I should have said no. I really should have. But I'm Carlton. And Carlton makes terrible decisions under pressure. So I nodded. And that's how I ended up eating reheated Chinese food on the same couch where Tessa once made me promise to never let her mother move in under any circumstances. That night, Bonnie and I didn't talk much. She cried a little while scrolling through her messages. I sat in silence, staring at my phone, watching the red notification badge climb, messages from friends, mutual acquaintances, even her coworkers. Some were apologetic, some curious. One from a guy named Barry in accounting said, "Bro, I thought you knew." Miles and Tessa have been flirting since the Q4 retreat. That message hurt more than I expected. Not because it confirmed my worst fears, but because everyone else apparently knew. I had been the last one to figure it out. I wasn't just betrayed. I was humiliated. A walking punchline. At 2:40 a.m., I got another email. Subject: formal notice, spousal property access request. It was from a paralegal representing Tessa and Miles. They were requesting immediate cooperative entry into my home to collect her belongings. There was even a proposed time attached this Thursday at 11 a.m., when she'd return with a support witness to ensure the process was calm and efficient. She had the audacity to schedule her return like it was a hair appointment. No call, no remorse, just a timestamp and legal bullet points. I was still reading the email when Bonnie reappeared from the guest room in one of Tessa's old college sweatshirts. She saw the screen and froze. She's lawyering up? Apparently I'm violating her right to property, I muttered. Even though she gave up her right to this marriage. Bonnie hesitated. Then she did something that stunned me. She sat down beside me, reached into her purse, and pulled out a USB drive. I wasn't going to show you this, she whispered. But you need to know the whole truth. I stared at it. What is it? Her voice shook. Back when she still lived with me. I found something. I copied it just in case. I didn't know who else to tell. Now I think, maybe you're the only one who'll believe it. I held it in my hand. Cold, small, and heavy with something I couldn't name. What's on here? I asked. Bonnie looked at me. Proof she planned this. I stared at the little USB stick in my palm, feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. It was gray with a tiny crack down the middle, the kind of thing you'd expect to find shoved in a drawer between expired coupons and broken rubber bands. But according to Bonnie, my wife's mother, who was currently sleeping in the guest room like this was a holiday visit, it held answers I wasn't ready for. Still, I couldn't leave it sitting there. I plugged it into my laptop. It took a second to load, and during that second, every muscle in my body tensed like a fuse was burning towards some inevitable detonation. The screen blinked. One folder. No password. It was simply labeled, private_CM_backup. Inside, for video files. Dated from over the past 2 months. Each was under a minute long. No titles. Just timestamps. I clicked the first. The screen lit up with grainy footage from a living room I didn't recognize, dim lighting, shaky angle, clearly taken from a security cam. It was Tessa, sitting on a couch, wearing the same robe she wore here on lazy Sunday mornings. Only now she was wrapped around a man I didn't want to identify but instantly did. Miles. They were laughing, drinking. She leaned in and kissed him, slow and confident, like it wasn't the first time and definitely wouldn't be the last. He whispered something into her ear, and she burst into laughter, clutching his shirt like a teenager at prom. I slammed the laptop shut. It felt like being kicked in the chest. I stood up too fast and knocked over the chair, the screech of metal on tile echoing like a scream in an empty cathedral. Bonnie appeared in the hallway, drawn by the noise, her face drawn and pale. I told you it was bad, she said softly. My throat was dry. Where was that filmed? She hesitated. His apartment. From the building's security system. My friend manages the property. I saw her car there a few nights in a row. I asked him to check the logs. You hacked it. She didn't answer, just gave me a look that said, I was a mother first. I nodded slowly. I wasn't angry at her. If anything, I was furious at myself. I had been living with a woman who planned my replacement while eating dinner across from me, watching shows, smiling like everything was fine. And I believed it. I believed her. When I finally sat down again, I opened the second video. This time the audio was clearer. They were talking about logistics. Not just flirty nonsense, actual planning. You'll fly out on Thursday. I'll already be there for the pitch, Miles said. What about Carlton? She asked. What about him? He replied with a chuckle. He's not going to do anything. He still thinks you're going to a sales retreat. Then her voice, so casual it made me feel sick. I might leave him a note. Or maybe just let him find out online. She laughed. As if my entire life, my home, my trust, my sanity, was an episode she couldn't wait to stream for free. By the time the third clip finished, I couldn't sit anymore. I paced the kitchen like a rat in a cage, trying to decide what the proper response was when your wife of 6 years throws you out of your own story. Bonnie said something behind me. I wasn't listening. I opened the fourth and final video. This one was different. No Miles. Just Tessa, alone in her car, parked under some trees, filming a video message on her phone. Hey, future me, she said. Just making this so I remember how worth it this is. She smiled, glanced at the screen like she was checking her hair. I know Carlton's gonna freak, but honestly, I've played the role long enough. I need someone who matches me, not someone who disappears into himself every time things get complicated. This is me choosing me. She ended it with a kiss to the camera. I closed the window. The image froze for a second, her face so smug and alive, before vanishing into a blank desktop. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there. And slowly, something inside me broke so quietly it didn't even echo. I need to leave, I finally whispered. Bonnie looked up. What do you mean? I mean this house, this town, everything. My voice cracked. She made it clear I was never part of her future. So I'm done being the wreckage of her past. She stood. Carlton, you can't just. Yes, I interrupted calmly now. I can. And I will. Because somewhere between the spoon I held at 3 a.m. and the USB drive sitting cold beside me, I realized something brutal and true. She didn't just walk away. She made sure I had nowhere to walk back to. I didn't sleep after watching those videos. I couldn't. My body was exhausted, but my brain refused to stop replaying every single frame, like some cruel internal projector on a loop, reminding me just how thoroughly I'd been rewritten out of my own life. I didn't scream. I didn't break things. Instead, I did something Tessa never expected me to do. I got organized. By morning, I'd already packed up everything I owned that wasn't poisoned by her memory. My clothes, my old vinyls, my grandfather's watch, the notebooks I used to scribble ideas in when I thought I was creative enough to write a book someday. I filled 2 large duffel bags and shoved the rest into the trunk of my car. Bonnie watched silently from the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I don't think running is the answer, she finally said. I'm not running, I replied without looking at her. I'm just refusing to stand still while she bulldozes the rest of me. She sighed, stepping aside to let me pass. Where will you go? I don't know yet. Maybe nowhere. Maybe everywhere. But not here. I drove for hours that day with no destination, windows down, radio off, my phone in the glove box, just so I wouldn't have to see another message light up. It felt like I'd been unplugged from reality, floating above the pain, the confusion, the betrayal, and dropped into a cold, unfamiliar freedom. No more pretending. No more smiling across dinner plates. No more falling asleep beside a stranger with my last name. I ended up in a motel just off the interstate, the kind with flickering neon signs and water stains on the ceilings. I checked in under a fake last name and paid in cash. Not because I was hiding, but because I wanted to feel like I didn't belong to anyone, not even myself. And then came Thursday. I didn't return home. I just accessed the security system from my laptop, the one she apparently forgot I still controlled, and watched everything unfold in real time. At exactly 11:02 a.m., a silver SUV pulled into the driveway. Tessa stepped out first, wearing white pants, designer sunglasses, and the kind of smug composure people usually reserve for courtroom victories. Behind her was Miles, of course, in khakis and a tight-fitting polo shirt, carrying 2 empty tote bags like he was helping his mom clean out her attic. And following them was a third person, a woman, late 20s, holding a DSLR camera. She was filming, not discreetly, not subtly. She walked right up to the porch and began recording the door, the windows, even the mailbox, as if this was some dramatic documentary about reclaiming lost property. Tessa turned to face the camera and began narrating like a true crime host. This is my legal residence, she announced. My husband has unlawfully locked me out despite our shared ownership. We are here today to collect only what is rightfully mine. I sat in the motel room, mouth open, heart pounding. She had planned this, scripted it, filmed it. I wasn't just a footnote in her new life. I was the villain in the version she was now producing for whoever she needed to convince next. They tried the door. Locked, of course. Tessa sighed dramatically and gestured to Miles, who pulled out a folded document from his back pocket. She held it up to the camera. A formal property access request served earlier this week, she said. Carlton was informed. He chose not to comply. This footage will serve as evidence. Then came the moment that truly made my skin crawl. She looked directly into the camera lens and said, if he's watching this. Carlton, you did this to yourself. I closed the laptop. I didn't scream, didn't cry, but my hands shook. That night, I got a call from my neighbor, an older man named Howard who'd lived next door since before we moved in. He sounded confused, hesitant. "Hey, son, I just saw a crew outside your place. Your wife, a friend. They said you had an incident and might be institutionalized. They were filming. Is everything okay?" That's when I realized what she was doing. She wasn't just ending the marriage. She was rewriting the entire narrative. She was laying down a trail of evidence, reshaping the story so that if anyone looked back later, they'd see her as the victim. Me? I was already being painted as unstable, unwell, unhinged. She had the head start, but I had the truth. And I wasn't going to disappear just because she edited me out. After Howard's call, I sat in that motel room for what felt like an entire season. Just me, a flickering bedside lamp, and the weight of someone else's story tightening around my throat. The room smelled like lemon-scented cleaner and cheap regret. I hadn't eaten in 12 hours. I hadn't slept in 36. But what kept me upright, what kept me from collapsing into that polyester-covered mattress and fading away, was rage. Not the loud kind. The cold, patient kind that plots quietly in the corner of the mind. She wanted me gone. Not just from the house, from the record. From the narrative. From existence. She was building a version of events where I was unstable, possessive, dangerous even. I could already imagine the headlines she was hoping to nudge into life. Estranged husband refuses to let go. Police called. Mental health questions raised. But what she forgot is that for 6 years, I had been the quiet one. The reserved one. The one who listened more than I spoke. And in that silence, I had absorbed everything. Backups. Notes. Conversations. Emails. Photos. Things she never thought I noticed. Things she assumed I deleted or discarded or wasn't smart enough to keep. She filmed a scene on my porch. I decided to release the footage from the night she rehearsed it. Because what Tessa didn't know, or maybe had simply forgotten, was that I had my own set of cameras. Not just the ones on the front porch. I had installed internal security cameras after the break-in 3 years ago, the one that left us both paranoid for months. They weren't obvious. Discreet, motion-triggered, cloud-synced, and still operational. So while she sat in my living room, scripting her lines with Miles, laughing about whether they should make it more dramatic, the system caught every word, every detail, including the part where Miles asked if they should fake a confrontation to sell the restraining order angle. I watched that clip in full, stomach churning. They were acting like this was some indie film they were producing. A love story with a villain. A plot twist. Drama. Except the villain was me, and I hadn't even auditioned for the role. I didn't confront her. I didn't send a cease and desist. I did what she least expected. I uploaded the full footage, unedited, unfiltered, to a private video link and sent it to one person only, her boss. Why? Because Tessa had built her image at work on integrity, empathy, and being a voice for women in leadership. Her online persona was pure corporate poetry, curated authenticity, uplifting quotes, videos about building trust in the workplace. Meanwhile, in this video, she was openly plotting how to manipulate documentation, abuse property laws, and orchestrate a false mental health crisis for a man she no longer loved. I didn't send the clip with any commentary. No threat. No demand. Just a link and a subject line, for transparency's sake. The response came 3 hours later. Not from her boss, from Tessa herself. She called 6 times in a row. Left 2 voicemails, the second barely coherent from how fast she was talking. Accused me of malicious sabotage, of invading her privacy, of ruining her reputation. Then, finally, she sent a single text that chilled me more than anything she'd said before. "You don't know who you're messing with, Carlton. You want war? Fine." That was it. Not a denial. Not an apology. A declaration. She wasn't going to back down. She was going to escalate. But what she didn't understand, what she never understood, is that I wasn't playing her game. I had already lost the marriage. Lost the life I thought I was building. I had nothing left to protect but the truth. And the truth, in all its quiet, brutal detail, was stronger than any show she could script. That night, I packed again. But this time, not to escape. This time, I packed to return. It was after midnight when I pulled back into my own driveway. The porch light was on. Not mine. Hers. The same warm LED glow she used to insist made the house look inviting, now felt like an interrogation lamp above a crime scene I was never supposed to return to. I parked down the block to avoid being seen and walked the rest of the way with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a USB drive in my coat pocket, not the one Bonnie gave me, but one I had built quietly, piece by piece. After the first sign of trouble appeared in Tessa's voice weeks ago, she said she wanted space. I gave her access to everything, and in return, she gave me a reason to document every shred of betrayal she left behind. The house looked exactly the same, but something was off. I could feel it. The front gate was unlocked, the curtains in the living room drawn slightly apart, and I noticed a faint, flickering glow. A ring light. My breath caught. She wasn't just living in my house. She was recording something. Again. Probably another chapter of her fabricated narrative. Maybe this time about how she had returned to the house to find it ransacked, or how I had threatened her before disappearing. I wouldn't put it past her. Tessa was the kind of person who treated truth like wet clay, to be shaped into whatever got the best lighting. I didn't knock. I didn't use a key. I waited in the shadows and watched the live feed from the outdoor security cam I still had access to. There she was, in the living room with Miles, both of them sitting on the couch, looking over a laptop. He looked annoyed. She looked furious. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Her gestures said everything. She was angry. Desperate. Probably about the fallout from her boss, who had reportedly placed her on administrative review after watching the footage I'd sent. I knew her pride wouldn't survive that. Her image was her currency, and now she was bankrupt. I waited until Miles stormed off to the kitchen. That's when I made my move. I rang the doorbell once. Just once. The silence that followed was electric. Through the feed, I saw her freeze. Her whole posture stiffened like someone pressed pause on her programming. Then she stood, glanced at the camera, and slowly made her way to the door. When she opened it, she didn't speak right away. She looked like she was rehearsing 3 different versions of herself in her head, trying to decide which one to perform. "You're not supposed to be here," she finally said, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. "And yet here I am," I replied, calm as glass. "You're violating the order." "There's no order, Tessa. You filed paperwork. It hasn't gone through. Don't pretend the law is on your side when your marriage license to Miles isn't even legal." Her face twitched. That's when I stepped forward and held up the second USB drive. "This," I said quietly, "goes live tomorrow. Scheduled. Pre-uploaded. It includes everything. The planning, the faked footage attempts, your emails to that fake wellness counselor you invented to document my breakdown. I know you were trying to build a case. I know you had a folder labeled exit plan. You should have renamed it perjury folder, because that's what half of it is." She tried to snatch the drive, but I pulled it back. "It's already backed up in 6 places," I added. "Cloud. Legal. Even sent to your father. You know, the retired judge who still thinks you walk on water." Her voice cracked. "You're bluffing." "No, Tessa. You were bluffing. You thought I'd fold. That I'd slink away, humiliated, while you rewrote reality in your favor. But I'm not the same person you thought you could control with pity and gaslighting. I know who I am now. And more importantly, I know who you are." She looked behind her, suddenly aware that the camera light in the hallway might still be recording. I noticed that too. I reached for my phone and remotely accessed the system. I'd changed the admin password just hours earlier. In a few taps, I turned every indoor camera off. No more witnesses. No more edits. Just her, me, and the truth. "What do you want?" she whispered, no longer posturing, no longer smirking. I leaned in, voice quiet but sharp. "I want you to walk away. Not just from the house. From me. From this game. I want you to vanish from my life the same way you disappeared from the truth." Or I hit upload, and every lie you built turns to ash in front of everyone you still think believes you. For a moment, she just stood there. Then her jaw clenched. She nodded once. And then for the first time in this entire nightmare, she said something real. "I didn't think you had it in you." Neither did I. But pain turns soft men into steel. And she was the flame that did it. She didn't say goodbye. She simply walked past me, down the porch steps, and toward the silver SUV waiting at the curb. The same car Miles had once pulled into my driveway like he was claiming territory. This time, he didn't get out. He barely looked up from his phone. She opened the passenger door, paused, and for a moment, I thought she might turn around and say something. A final jab. A regret. A line she thought would echo forever. But she didn't. The door shut. The engine started. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there long after the taillights vanished, the cold night air wrapping around me like the truth. I was alone. But not in the way I had feared. Not in the way she wanted me to be. I was alone in the sense that, for the first time in a long time, I had no one standing in front of me controlling the temperature of my life. I could finally feel what I wanted to feel, not what I was told to. I stepped back inside. The silence was beautiful. No ring lights. No staged scenes. No fake legal threats pinned to the fridge with magnets from couples retreats she never meant to take with me. Just me. And my breath. And the echo of a man who had finally reclaimed his space. The next few weeks were quiet. Not easy, just quiet. I changed the locks again, this time for the last time. I had her name removed from every document, every bill, every login. I painted the living room, covered the wall where her vision board used to be with a deep navy blue that made the space feel new. Like I hadn't been a ghost here for years. Bonnie moved out after a while, gently, respectfully. She left a note on the counter. I'm sorry she became someone neither of us recognized. You didn't deserve this. But I believe this will be the beginning of something better for you. Thank you for showing more grace than most would have. And then, for the first time in months, I slept. Not just lay down, I slept. 8 hours, uninterrupted, no dreams, no cold sweats. My body knew the war was over before my mind caught up. And then something else happened. A week later, I got an email from my old writing professor. I hadn't spoken to her in years. Apparently, she'd stumbled across a short anonymous blog post I'd written under a pseudonym. One where I detailed my story without names, without drama, just the raw evolution of a man watching his identity disassemble and finding clarity in the rubble. She wanted to know if I had more. Turns out, I did. I started writing again. Not for revenge. Not even for therapy. Just because I had things to say, things I didn't need permission to feel. That small blog grew into something. People wrote back. Readers shared their stories. Some thanked me. Some cried. But all of them reminded me I wasn't some discarded subplot in someone else's spotlight. I mattered. My voice did too. One evening, months later, I found myself in a small local bookstore, setting up folding chairs for a reading event. My name was on the little chalkboard sign out front. It was raining, but the room filled anyway. And somewhere in the third row sat a woman with a pen tucked behind her ear and a notepad in her lap. Afterward, she came up to me. You don't write like someone who's been broken, she said. I smiled. That's because I'm not. Not anymore. She asked me if I'd like to get coffee sometime. I said yes. And that's where I'll leave it. Not because everything is perfect now, but because I'm no longer pretending it has to be. I don't live in the house that betrayal built anymore. I live in the truth. And that, finally, is enough.